Well, my friends, welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, we are continuing the coverage of the Idaho 4, the four students brutally killed at school on November 13th of this year. And almost 7 weeks later, they still don't have a suspect. They still haven't at least named a suspect. I truly do believe they have a suspect, and we'll dive into that as well. But I want to share with you, what is Chief Fry saying about this 911 call? Will we get to hear this anytime soon? Let's go ahead and dive into what we have now and share with you. In a sit-down interview with CBS affiliate KREM2 News, Moscow Police Department Chief James Fry, he was sharing a little updates on this case. He said his investigators are still waiting for crime lab results from evidence collected at the scene of the quadruple slaying. I truly do believe that this evidence will help lead to someone. That's me sharing that. He says, we don't want to rush that. We want to ensure that they're taking their time to get all of that right. That's what Mr. Fry said a couple days ago. And he added, real life and the movies are a lot different. In the movies, they have all the results back in an hour. We don't get that in real life. So we are going to be patient. He shared how their department is not used to this national attention. Right? Hear this.
It's new, we're not used to the national attention quite this big, especially with news crews coming to town and whatnot. But, we brought in a PIO team that's helped us out immensely to deal with just the large amount of requests to do interviews.
Large amounts of requests to do interviews. So they brought in a PIO team. Personal information officer, I believe it was. I'm kind of forgetting. Professional information officer, something like that. Almost like a public spokesperson for law enforcement. And in this interview, he was talking about all the tips that they are getting. He has also talked about 17,000 tips coming in. Now, that is a lot of tips. And as I've shared before, I feel like every day more and more tips are coming in.
We've had over 17,000 tips come in, and we have a team across the nation that's looking at those and pulling stuff that's good. But we want people to continue to, even any tip that there is, even if they don't think it's a valuable tip, we want those because we'll determine whether they're valuable to us. And people may not think that they're valuable, but we still want that stuff to come into us so that we can look at it and decide if it fits our case or not.
And he's even asking for more tips. Let them decide if it's a good tip or not. So basically, if you have any little piece of information that you may want to share, that's exactly what he's saying is go ahead and share it. They have a lot of tips. They have over 17,000 tips and growing. And in today's update, he gives a little more as to where these tips are, the emails and things like that. And I'll share that with you as well. But he also shared that he could not say whether any DNA has been found at the scene. Because this is an ongoing investigation, he felt like that is not something we can share at this time. Now, Moscow Police Chief James Fry, he said that he wished that he had held a press conference in the immediate aftermath of this quadruple slaying in the college town. Almost comes back to what he shared at the beginning, that we are not used to this national attention. But he's saying that, yes, I need to take responsibility. This is on me that they were not releasing enough information at the very beginning.
So I take responsibility for information not getting out as fast as possible. I probably should have been much quicker on that, but in the beginning of these, we're a small department, so everybody's working on this case, and me to be included. But we realized pretty quickly that we needed to get information out. That's why we called in the PIO team. and they've helped us get information, and I think we've been much better at that since that time. You know, some of the information early on, you don't, like I said, you don't release a ton. I wish I would have been, had a press conference earlier, but like I said, I take responsibility for that.
He says it. I take responsibility for information not getting out as soon as possible. He's talking about at the beginning, right? At the beginning of this, he says, you know, we are a small department, so everybody was working on this, me included. And that was probably before they brought in all the FBI and everyone that was sharing this. And then, so of course, the reporter asked about the 911 call, right? Everyone's wanting to know more about this 911 call. This is part of the ongoing investigation. From what I gathered out of him sharing, and of course he couldn't share much, but from what I gathered, they have something in it. That's what I gathered. Here, hear a little from him.
Probably another one of those that might be hard to answer, but when will the department release the 911 call, or can we expect that to be publicly released?
I think it'll be released when the prosecution believes that we can release that. That may be at trial, that may be before then. But some of that, you know, we make a decision as a team of investigators and administration, as well as our prosecutor's office. So we want to make sure that we hold that until it's no longer, not that it's not needed, but it's okay for the case.
Mm-hmm. Is there something specific on the call that you believe could lead to an arrest?
Like I said, I can't discuss that. It's part of the investigation, but as soon as we can release that information, we will.
She asks, is there something on there? And of course, he can't share anything. This is a big deal. The 911 call that led to the discovery of the bodies was made at 11:58 a.m. on November 13th and originated from the phone of one of the two roommates who survived the attack that were on the first floor. Now, a dispatcher was told that there was an unconscious individual. We still don't really know who that unconscious. Was it Ethan? Did one of the roommates see Ethan and thought he was unconscious? And so then she calls over some friends? I'm speculating on this because, again, until we know about this 911 call and who made it, all we can do is speculate. Now, authorities have since revealed that other friends were present in the house when the 911 call was made after they were summoned by the roommates. Right? The surviving roommates, they summoned friends to the residence because they believed one of the second floor victims had passed out and was not waking up. One of the second floor victims, either Ethan or Xana. That's according to a statement by the Moscow Police Department, and that's what it read. So we do know that one of the people on the second floor, either Ethan or Xana, because those are the two that we do know were discovered on the second floor. Now, multiple people had talked with the 911 dispatcher. That's what we would later find out before a Moscow police officer arrived at 1122 King Road. Officers entered the residence and found the 4 victims on the second and third floors. And what we don't know is police haven't revealed who made that 911 call, and they have not released the audio until they know. Now, when pressed on a little more about the call and why it could not be released, the department said that the contents are exempt from public disclosure because the records are active investigation records, which, if released, would interfere with enforcement proceedings. That's what they're sharing, meaning that there is some value to putting this case together. What does that mean though for the girl who called? Because we believe it was one of the roommates that called. We do know that it was a roommate's phone. And so it is unclear what the roommates and other friends had discussed with the dispatcher on the call and what led them to describe a victim as merely unconscious, right? There should be blood all over the place, all over this scene, right? This is a crime scene, which means that everything happened there, which we find out is actually still an ongoing active crime scene. Hang around to the end so I can share that with you as well. It is also unclear what the roommates had and friends had saw inside the home before placing the 911 call. Because the 911 call, they're going to share what it is that we see. They said unconscious roommate. Did they think it was a drug overdose? We don't know, right? What were they thinking that made them call and say unconscious person? We know it's a party scene. That's all we really know. That's all we really know. But Mr. James Fry, he is sharing that, he is sharing what he's done is stirred fresh speculation over the release of this 911 call, which is what led to the discovery of the 4 University of Idaho victims' bodies. So this is very key to this case. Now, authorities, they have kept a very tight lid on the call for almost 7 weeks since Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan were found stabbed to death in their beds on November 13th. Now, this call about an unconscious individual, this was made hours after the victims were believed to have been killed and came from a phone belonging to one of the roommates. The identity has yet to be revealed. Mr. Fry, he said that the call would be released in a rare interview. He didn't know when, though. He says, I think it'll be released when the prosecution believes that we can release that. That may be at trial. That may be before then. That's what he is sharing. Now, when asked whether the call could bring investigators closer to making an arrest, he declined to give a firm answer. He cannot share that because it's an ongoing investigation. What he did say was, I can't discuss that. It's part of the investigation, but as soon as we can release that information, we will. And, he says that we realized pretty quickly that we needed to get information out. That's why we called a public information officer, PIO team, and they've helped us. I think we're much better at that. That's him communicating with the public. And so he even shared that the families have someone that's there with them, right? He says we are always in contact.
We're in contact with all the families daily. We have a representative from the police department that communicates with them. I have not been in contact with the private investigator. I think the same family has an attorney, which we have been in contact with the attorney, and we actually channel all of our stuff through the attorney.
And so the department, they have since opted to offer new press releases every other day, despite the lack of substantial updates. Like a lot of us are like jumping on these updates quick, hoping for something. And now we're at the point where it's like nothing new, nothing new, nothing new. But he did give an update today, and I'll dive into that towards the end, but he did give another update today. But Moscow police, they requested the help of the Idaho State Police and the FBI, but has seemingly remained the lead agency in this investigation. Authorities, they have maintained that the department does have a lot of information that is not being released in order to protect the integrity of the investigation, and which is what leads me to share that I truly do believe they have someone on their radar. They have a suspect. There's just too much there to believe there's not a suspect. And with that being said, even a former sergeant, I believe he was, he even said, yeah, they definitely have to have some type of suspect. They have to know more than they're sharing. I truly believe that. But as he says, he is trying to make sure that everything is put together for a full case, like how we got from point A to point B.
Trying to investigate things, and we're fact finders. That's what an investigation does. It puts all the pieces together so that we can paint the picture, so that when an arrest is made and it goes to trial, that we can lay that all out for a jury to be able to see the facts and see how we got from point A to point B.
And so, as you can see, now there he's sharing. We are fact finders. If you followed yesterday's video, now you know where that comment even came from, was his interview that he did. But we do find out that there are 90 white Elantras that were registered to park on campus as cops struggle to continue to find this this white car. And so, but we do find that there is a list of 90 white Hyundai Elantras that are registered to park at the University of Idaho. Vehicles that are similar to the one that police are seeking in connection with this quadruple slaying, just steps off campus, right? Like, these are registered cars that are Elantras in this area. And so now that we're getting almost 7 weeks since this happened, police are still seeking this car that they say was spotted near the scene of the crime on King Road in the early hours of November 13th. And the Moscow Police Department, they are providing the following information to update the public on the known facts surrounding the murders that occurred on November 13th. And so he shared today that they're going to be given another cleaning, sweeping of the home on December 30th. That's tomorrow at the 1122 King Street residence that will remain an active crime scene under police control. Now, however, Moscow police, they have worked with Team Idaho Property Management Services to begin remediation of the residency by a private company. Now, remediation activities include removing potential biohazards and other harmful substances used to collect evidence. And so there is no timeline for completion, but the property will be returned to the property management company when it's fully completed. And Moscow Police Patrol officers, they will continue to be in the area, especially on that day, to keep the roadways open. Media is asked to provide adequate space for work vehicles accessing the residence. And so investigators, they continue processing and working through more than 9,025 email tips, 4,575 phone tips, 6,050 digital media submissions, and they have conducted over 300 interviews. My friends, that is a lot to keep them busy, without a shadow of a doubt. Investigators do believe that someone has information that adds context to what occurred on the night of the murders and continue requesting additional pictures, video, and social media content from anyone in the area who may have seen or know or even think of anything. And they even say that our focus remains on the investigation, not an individual's activities displayed in the tip. Whether you believe it is significant or not, they continue to ask, your information might be one of the puzzle pieces that help solve these murders. Now, digital submission of tips and leads will not be publicly disclosed due to their ongoing commitment to keep information private, and details may be pertinent to the ongoing criminal investigation. Now, progress does continue when it comes to locating this 2011-2013 Hyundai Elantra that is believed to be in the immediate area of the King Road residence during the early hours. Investigators believe that the occupants may have critical information to share about this case. So they're asking, if you know anyone with that car, please speak up. If you know a vehicle matching the description, speak up. Or if you know of anyone who may have been driving this specific vehicle on the days preceding or the day of the murders, please forward that information to the tip line. As we know, no suspects have been identified, but I do believe that's all they're publicly saying, that we've not identified anyone. Does that mean that they are just not identifying them to the public? Or does that mean they don't have any clue who is behind this? I truly believe they have something. And so They're asking to please reference official releases for accurate and updated progress. Because even in the interview he did with the news station, he said that there's so much information out there that it could cause a lot of time to be wasted. And they're wanting people not to reshare stuff, but to just get credible sources, as close as credible as you can from places like police, the investigators that are involved. And so they do say that updates will be provided when new information is available for release. And, he even shared in today's release that they're thankful to the community for their continued support, understanding of the limited information that they are allowed to share, and asking for more patience during this difficult time. And that's exactly what we want to give. We want to be a little more patient, right? We want this to be solved correctly, right? We don't want that the wrong person is blamed for such a thing at all. And so, the question comes up, could the killer have been indoors when the victims had come home? What do you think about that? Do you think that they could have been indoors? Because there was like a panel of criminologists that suggested that the killer of the 4 students may have already been in the property before the victims came home. Could that be a possibility? I would think that right at this stage, almost anything is a possibility, right? And so criminologist and behavior analyst Casey Jordan spoke on News Nation just yesterday and discussed the ongoing investigation into this brutal slaying. And so even though they have not announced any suspect, a lot of people believe they do have someone on their radar. So you have this mystery that is surrounding the killings that has sparked so many questions regarding how the assailants was able to murder 4 individuals and then flee the scene. And still, almost 7 weeks later, no one is saying anything. We don't really know. Let's make that very clear. We don't know what the cops have. We only go by what we believe, and some of us are literally believing every single thing we hear. Let's not do that. We got to also know that in this day and age of digital, which is why Moscow Police Chief Fry says, I'm not surprised by all the misinformation because of today's day and age when it comes to the media and social media and all that stuff. So he says he's not surprised about that. But this person, the criminologist who shared, Casey Jordan, she spoke, I believe it's a she, and speaking on the show, Jordan said, people who commit these sorts of crimes, who plan them, plot them, they stalk. So that's always a possibility that maybe they were stalking at first. And Casey says they might case the joint, but they don't want surprises. They don't want crowds. They don't want a busy house. So I think that the fact that there wasn't anything going on in the house that night at all, we don't even know. The killer could have been inside the house when people came home hiding. We don't really know that. That's a fair statement. I mean, I don't know. You can't really rule that out. You cannot rule that out, especially when you think about where everyone was when they were unalived in this home, right? And Casey says, I don't think it is related at all that it was a party house. It just gives us a lot of insight into the residents of that house and the kind of house that it was. And retired FBI Special Agent Robin Dreek, who was also on the show with Jordan, reflected on the police's handling of the case so far. And the Moscow Police Department, they have repeatedly been under scrutiny on how they've handled this, and so they have called the Moscow police, they have called on the public to come forward with any information, pictures, videos from that night that they can even drum up that they may not have even thought of at that time. And so they do have these bits of information, and maybe some piece of it could provide the missing pieces to this investigation and hopefully point to a suspect. But the other criminologist, Dreek, said, I like the word that police have used when they said someone is out there with information. Someone means it is very specific, yet not being specific towards an individual. In other words, I don't think they actually have a specific individual in mind. That's what Drake said. If they did, they would already be in contact and interviewing them. Well, the flip side is they could have already been in contact. They could have already interviewed, but they didn't have enough to arrest, so they let them go. That's the procedure, right? And so now the word someone, the word someone knows something out there. Well, if you stop and think about it, when I first heard that comment, my thought process was the same. Like, okay, is he referring to someone, or maybe they have a suspect in mind? They need someone else to help corroborate that. To help bring more light to, yep, this is the person. We are on the right track. They need so much information, again, to get from point A to point B, as the chief had said. And so Drake said what they're really trying to do is equipping the general population with knowledge on how to be present and really be change experts. And so, because if we have confirmation bias, when we are looking for a killer, you might miss everything else that might be relevant. That's what the criminologist had shared in this. And so, there's a good chance that maybe the person was indoors when this happened before everyone got home. And if that's the case, like, what they would have heard first floor people come in, right? They would have heard the two roommates in the first floor come in. Why didn't they do anything? Weren't they there first? And then Ethan and Xana? And then Maddie and Kaylee? Something along those lines? But they did nothing to the first floor. So it's hard to really believe what these criminologists are sharing, because why didn't anything happen to the first floor girls? Or why didn't the first floor girls even hear anything? So if that was true, then why didn't we hear anything from the first floor girls? Why didn't anything happen to them? So that is I may not be buying that so much, that they were there. Now, what I could buy is a stalker stalking outside until the actual target got home. But if they were after one, why kill four? Unless they heard something, right? So it's this very, very, like, holy moly's. I look forward to getting answers. There will be some answers eventually. I don't think this is going to go as cold as a lot of people think, but we never know. Only time will tell what will happen. My friends, I'm Manny Rodriguez, and this has been another episode of Deep True Crime. At the end of the day, we want justice for these 4 young adults who had so much life to live and so much life to give. My friends, if you are a person of prayer, please pray that we get justice for these young kids. And my whole goal is to be a voice for the victims, because they no longer can be a voice for themselves. And truth is, why should their memory not stay in front of people? It's no fault of their own why this happened to them. Let's not forget the Idaho 4. I'm sure there will be future documentaries, there will be future movies, future series. I'm sure it's already in the works. You know how media jumps on these things. Gabby Petito was 2021, I believe. 2022, there's documentaries, there's series, there's things, right? I haven't watched it, but it's already out there. And so I'm sure that this is going to be a topic as well. And at the end of the day, we want justice for the 4 individuals who were taken from this world way too soon. My friends, if this is the type of content you like to follow, hit the subscribe button and click on that like if you got some value from this, because that will tell YouTube there's value. And at the end of the day, let's get more eyeballs on Idaho 4. Hashtag justice for Idaho 4. My friends, I look forward to serving you again and being a voice for the victims. Have an amazing day out there. Peace.